Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Matthew Dickerson. Tech Talk. Sit back and relax. It's time to talk technology.
Hello, dreamers. Come on and join us as we all shift our gaze to a point just past the horizon, to that space in the future that lies just around the corner. Welcome to Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. Now, in today's episode, we're checking in on the latest EV updates. And there's good news for pickup truck and Ute fans alike. And if you're still umming and ahhing about purchasing house batteries, we've got some helpful news for you. And we'll see how AI is helping out neurologists and policemen alike. But before all that kicks off, we should welcome our tech guru to the microphone. Welcome, Matthew Dickerson.
I've been trying to get faster research, James, trying to do my research faster for these segments. So right. I thought it was time to upgrade my notebook. I don't like going more than 3 years before you upgrade your notebook because technology changes so quickly. Yeah. But I've been frustrated to no end this week trying to buy a new notebook. And I have one basic requirement in a new notebook. I want everything. Okay, so
don't ask for too much.
That's right. And it seems like a reasonable request.
One with a lot.
That's right. I want to get a hamburger with everything you've got.
Yeah, right.
All mixed. I don't care how high you have to stack it, all mixed together. So obviously I've gone for the latest Core Ultra 9 285HX chip because that's the latest from Intel. So you want the fastest chip. But the thing that got me frustrated was the screen. So I want my screen to be 4K. My current screen's 4K, so I want a new screen with 4K. But I remember back to the probably mid-2000s, I had this beautiful Toshiba. Toshiba used to be my favourite brand of notebook. They don't really do notebooks anymore, so I've had to change my brand. But I had this beautiful Toshiba tablet, which I could spin the screen around, fold it down on itself, get my little stylus out and write on it. But it had a SIM card built in, so I could have that always connected, just like a modern tablet that you would buy now.
Yeah.
So that seems fairly simple. And my current notebook doesn't have that capabilities. And I thought, well, I can't remember why I couldn't get it at the time, but surely by now.
Now when you're upgrading, you're
definitely
doing it.
So all I wanted was a 4K screen, a touch screen, because it's handy to have a touch screen on your notebook, and a SIM card or some type of eSIM, some type of mobile broadband capability. Well, those three items in the screen are mutually incompatible.
Oh.
So I could have 4K and touch, but if I had 4K and touch, I couldn't have mobile broadband. Why? I say, why? Why not mobile broadband with 4K and touch?
So you can have your Supreme Pizza with the mushrooms and the olives, but you can't have the anchovies. Well, I don't like the anchovies anyway.
That's fair enough.
But if you have the anchovies and the mushrooms, you can't have the olives.
So if I went for the mobile broadband, I had to cut the screen back to 1920 by 1080 rather than 3840 by 2060, and I could have that and non-touch. Supposedly, I said, look, this isn't good enough for me. I want an explanation. I want to know why. Supposedly, the antenna that would be mounted in the screen is not compatible from a heat perspective with 4K and touch in the screen. We'll just make it a bit thicker.
Yeah,
put a fan in there.
Guys.
Do something.
Is nobody thinking about notebooks these days?
Or me.
Yes.
Think about me, more importantly.
Yeah, right.
So then I actually was going to get a bit brave, and I've contemplated a bit over the years going to an 18-inch notebook.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about it because...
That's a big lump to carry.
Correct, and that's part of the thing. I'll be at a conference and I'll see someone with an 8-inch notebook. Oh, wow, that's great. Yeah. Sitting there at the conference with this huge big screen, but then I think, it's pretty heavy carrying around, a bit clumsy. But I thought, okay, well, maybe in the 18-inch, surely I can get what I want because it's a bigger screen, so maybe the heat dissipation's better. I could get a 2560 screen in touch with mobile broadband, but not 4K. And then the reason I was given was a 4K screen on a bigger screen like that would then drain the battery life too much. Therefore, they had to cut it down, the resolution. And I would have thought 4K, 3840 pixels compared to 2560 pixels wouldn't have made that much difference to battery power. But then again, I'm not manufacturing the notebook. So I had to, I'm going to say the C word here, I had to compromise.
Oh!
I don't like compromise.
Never compromise.
I don't like it. But anyway, in the end, I won't say the brand I ordered, but I ordered one which I had to go with.
So, all this was online. You weren't in a store and you didn't walk out tipping tables over. I'm just getting a visual image of you just pushing stuff off
throwing
benches
notebooks in the air.
This is stupid.
Well, it was an online discussion, if you like, back and forth over several days to try and get there. But what about this? How about that? With several different brands, I must admit, to try and find the final
solution. Did you ever write in caps like, come on? on, and exclamation mark.
Please.
Come on.
So I went as far as italics. I didn't go all uppercase, but I went italics, okay? That's how frustrated
you
I
kept
was.
it on a level. That's good.
That's
You
right.
main control.
So the compromise I had to make was, and it was a tough decision. I was almost at the stage where I went mobile broadband with HD, and I went, no, I just think I need that 4K, which I probably won't be able to see. Getting older now, my eyes, I've got glasses, I probably can't tell the difference between 4K.
But if you know that you've got less than 4K, you know that.
Every now and again, I'll set a little line on the screen. I go, look at that line. It's a little bit squiggly. If I only had 4K, I'd be right now. So, and I want to touch. Touch is handy. I don't use it that often. When I do use it, it's almost a natural thing. You just go to the screen, and I've done that on other screens sometimes.
Absolutely, I'm using the keyboard and even the arrow buttons and all that sort of stuff. Yes, I use those, but then every now and then you reach out and use the screen.
You just touch the screen. So I
had to have that versatility.
Had to come with the next model that comes out. Surely they'll have nailed it.
Surely by 2026 or maybe. Well, the next one's 3 years down the track, is it? Maybe 2028.
Yeah, surely by then.
All right, now we better get this show on the road with a little bit of myth busting, I think. We're all about the science here at Tech Talk, and of course we love to dispel a myth or two every now and then. Now, mobile phones have been in common use now for at least 25 years or so. I measure that on when I got a mobile phone myself. I know that they were out before then. And mobile phones are, of course, not immune to their fair share of mythology. Matt, talk us through some of these urban myths and how they stand up now in 2025.
And I will give an acknowledgement here. This was a Pop Science article that I read that talked about some myths. I thought that's not a bad one to just have a look at some of those common myths that are there.
Bring in the kids.
Yeah, that's right. So 1987, I think, was the first cellular phone in this country. In about 1980, we had another system, but AMPS, the cellular system, if you like, that we started, that we kind of know today. It was about 1987. So it's been around for some time.
Well, it was in 1999 when it finally caught up with James Eddy.
Right, okay, there you go. And by then it was probably CDMA or maybe even GSM, so not the original AMPS. So one of the things that you see still, if you go into a petrol station, which I don't that often, but if you go to a petrol station, you still see a sign that says no mobile phone use.
Yeah.
And the story was, and I, being inquisitive and sometimes a bit annoying, when I see signs that don't make sense to me, I'll ask about it. And I remember seeing signs at petrol stations, no mobile phone use. And I'd walk in when I was paying for my petrol back in the old days and I'd say, why is that? And sometimes they'd go, huh? And sometimes they'd say, because it starts a fire. And I've gone, wow. And I used to struggle with that. And I've done research over the years, and this Pop Science article brought to my attention. So far, to this day, from 1987 in Australia, earlier across the world, mobile phones are available, there have been recorded 0 fires caused by a mobile phone at a petrol station.
So that's a rough number?
That's a fairly approximate number, plus or minus 0, okay?
Okay, right.
So the logic was that a mobile phone near a metallic object, i.e. the petrol bowser, would create a spark between the mobile phone and the petrol bowser, which would then start a fire. Now, you can imagine that a spark between those two things would be bad. So having petrol fumes, as you're filling it up, you can smell them, you can see the petrol fumes coming out. Having a little spark there, I can't imagine would be a good thing to happen. But when's the last time you were using a mobile phone near any metallic object, near the refrigerator in your house?
People wear glasses, don't they?
They do wear glasses. There'd be some nice little shocks going there. Anything at all that is metallic around you that might be grounded, for example, you'd think you'd be walking around, sparks there everywhere. You look, there'll be a spark. You
would know someone who got that spark, or at least it might have happened to you. Yeah,
that's right. And if you get out of the car and your phone's in your pocket, and it gets a phone call there, because obviously they're saying don't use your phone, but if it's that bad an issue, then even a phone in your pocket could spark across to the bowser and start a fire. The one that made me laugh the most was one day I was at a petrol station, and the guy was around the corner from where you walked into the actual unit, and probably all of 5 metres away from the bowsers, having a smoke. And there's a sign there, don't use your mobile phone. And I actually said to him, so you're worried about the mobile phone starting a fire, but I know I was far enough away with my smoke.
Fair
It was
enough.
okay.
Yeah,
So
no,
don't
right.
flick it in that direction.
But we know that Jamie Heineman and Adam Savage on Mythbusters tested this one.
They did, yeah.
20 years ago at least.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And it would have been one of those great ones where people sent in, what about the myth around that? And so they did try and, in their words, blow up. They like blowing up things.
Well, they set it up to succeed, didn't they?
They did, exactly
Yeah.
right. Every
that was
possible
biased
way.
science. They were trying to get it to work.
That's right, and they couldn't. So that's number one myth. I only got three to hit you with. That was the first one, was definitely, positively, no recorded incidents. I'm pretty confident you can use your phone near a petrol bowser. You may be distracted, so it may not be a good idea because you may not put it in the actual petrol tank correctly. You may be distracted. I accept that.
Yeah.
But starting a fire, it's not going to happen. You've heard it here first. Not unlikely. Not.
And we don't want to
going
make trouble for petrol station attendants, but if you were to ask them about it, I wonder what answer you get.
That's right. And do that next time you go in. Ask them about it. Say, James said.
Now, this next myth.
I know.
We've talked about this before, and I'm sorry I'm going to perpetuate it, but let's go.
So when you talk to manufacturers, when you talk to people that run various sites that explore myths or conspiracies, to this day, apart from the conversation we're about to have, to this day we've got no conclusive evidence that our phones are eavesdropping on
Only
us.
anecdotal evidence.
That's right.
Yes.
Which anecdotal evidence sounds like a bit of a contradiction there.
Yeah.
So we've tried it. We've done the experiment.
Fully accept, yes, that that my scientific basis is very loose.
That's right. Now we've done it. We tried the experiment. For a week we said words around our homes. And we came back and compared results, and they were the opposite.
Yes, they were the opposite. Yes, I was getting offers for wedding dresses. But it happened again a couple of weeks ago where I was talking to a friend just on the sidelines of the soccer about something, and next thing you know, I'm getting these ads on my phone, Matt. So anyway, tell us the full story here.
So what the various conspiracy groups might say is that they don't need to listen to you because their ad tracking and their analysis of you as a person is so good that they're feeding you ads that you want to see regardless. And you might do one little search on something, and the frustration I want to be able to say, I've bought this, because sometimes I'm searching. So notebooks that I've been searching for the last week, I've made my
But that
purchase.
makes sense. If you've gone online and you've done a search for notebooks, then it makes sense that they might go, oh, this guy's into notebooks.
That's right. But the problem I have for the next month now, I will get ads for a variety of notebooks. And I want to say, I've already bought it, so stop, please. But you can't do that.
No.
But this is what the general discussion is that all of the algorithms, all of the things we look at, all the things we click on, everything we do on all of our social media apps and on the web, there is so much data being scraped from our lives that the advertisers are feeding us information. They don't need to listen to us. So I know it's one of the things that people do discuss and do debate, and I'm about 98% on this one, so I'm not 100%. I'm less confident on this one than I am the petrol station one.
Right, okay. Yeah, okay. Only 2%.
Yeah, that's right. But again,
I'm not into conspiracy theories at all. Can I just qualify that? But this one, we're being tracked. I'm sure of it.
So keep an eye on that one there, and just try and think of what you do in your general day-to-day life and see if there's other ways that those might pop up. Well, why did that pop up? And again, do the experiment that you and I have done where you think of a random topic that you're not going to search for, you're not going to type in. It's something that's completely not on your agenda anywhere. So pick some random topic and then just say that around the home for the next week and see if you get any ads that pop up. Yeah.
Put it to the test. But look, I'll just qualify that as well. I don't believe in ghosts. But my father-in-law did explain to us at one stage in the house that we lived in previously that there was a little girl that was wandering around downstairs, in the evening, the late evenings and all that sort of stuff. We had a ghost. I wasn't buying into that at all, but I was especially cautious to make lots of noise and turn on the lights if ever I went to get a drink from the kitchen at 2:00 in the morning.
Good. Now, the last one is one of those ones where you see some people who are absolutely obsessed about closing every app. So they use their phone for 5 minutes and then close all their apps down. And I've said to them, so why are you doing that? I'm saving battery power. Now, manufacturers, if you like, let's pick the two main ones, so Android and iOS, both say that the process they have in place for their apps is so clever that it actually uses more battery power to close and open your apps,
Really?
then leave your app open in the background, because when you're not using it, it goes into suspend mode. So then when you open it up again, it actually takes less battery power to open that app back up again. Now, if you've got an app that you use once because I'm going for a holiday and I'm going through this theme park and there's an app for this theme park and I'm going to use that once in the next 5 years, I'd say, sure, close it down. But if you've got something that you use on a semi-regular basis and you use it and then you just minimise that while you're going to other things, then just leave it sitting in the background. That's okay.
Right.
There's enough memory on the phone to handle that. It doesn't use battery power sitting there because it's in suspend mode. But I think we get this obsession where on our computer, on our desktop, when we've got apps minimised, they are chewing up some memory. They're probably even chewing up a bit of battery power if you're using a notebook on battery. So you do tend to close those and not leave them all open. But a phone is a bit different. So the software engineers from the major manufacturers say, it's okay, leave it open, leave it suspended. That's better than opening and closing all the time.
Well, I wonder how many of our listeners are going to go, yeah, I accept that and just go with it. And some of it's just still going to have this habit where, no, I've got to close this. It's an OCD thing almost.
I think it is a bit of an OCD thing that I've got apps open. I don't want those apps open. Same with tabs. When you've got tabs in your browser, whatever browser you use, and you see people sometimes that'll have 50, 100, 200 tabs there.
Yep.
You do eventually hit a limit and it will say, sorry, you've got too many tabs. Sure, then close them all. But you don't need to waste your time doing it and closing them all the time.
And some people will waste their time cleaning up their kitchen bench and other people will just leave stuff lying around on the kitchen bench for days and days and days.
I used that saucepan yesterday. Well, I can use it again today, can't I?
Yeah, that's exactly right. No, you're not going to put that away or wash it up if you use it again.
Put it away and put it in the cupboard, then take it out of the cupboard. That'll waste time.
Yeah,
so there are a few little myths. The last one, just as a quick little one, is the dry rise trick. Don't do the dry rise trick. If you get your phone wet, I mean, many phones are able to handle being wet now, but if you get your phone wet, then the best thing to do is dry it as much as you can with a cloth, like a lint-free cloth, and then put it somewhere where there's sun and airflow. That's better than rice, because the rice sometimes gets stuck in some of the various ports.
Well, there's got to be some dust and stuff from that rice as well that's going to clog stuff up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so
the
starch, all that sort of thing. So all of that. So the whole thing is, I fixed my phone because I got it wet and I put it in some rice and it was all okay. Yeah, it was just going to be okay anyway. The rice really did nothing for it.
No, I stuck a wet phone in a bag of rice and it didn't help it one little bit.
And could you eat the rice? Was the rice nice and wet then?
Every now and then I find one of our stories absolutely gobsmackingly astounding. And I cannot believe this next story. Now, AOL, America Online, a major online service provider in the US, is finally in 2025 pulling up its dial-up internet service. Matt, this is going to upset, I think, absolutely no one, surely.
No, there are 100,000 people that get upset. There are still approximately...
Really? Still getting them boom, boom, boom.
I was going to ask, you were unprompted, but I was going to ask for the modem, your version of the modem sound. My version is more like a... It kind of had a little rhythm to it there.
Yeah, it was noisy and annoying and slow as all get up. But obviously there are people that are living in the Stone Age so remotely.
Well, I think a lot of them
they need
now
their internet.
Would be probably going to the sky. So I reckon those 100,000 households would be in remote areas, in regional areas across the US, in places that are underserved by other technologies, or they might be, as you say, just a little bit behind the times.
But Elon Musk has tried to solve their problem, hasn't he?
Well, you've got Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk out there trying to solve their problems for them. So those 100,000, so they've got to the end of September. They can keep using their dial-up. And then at the end of September, they can look for alternatives. And the sky is the obvious place to look
downloading family photos and just go and make a cup of tea while you get one photo coming.
So to give you an idea, I want actually just a quick snapshot of the history of that. So if I go back to give you an idea, in the 1990s and early 2000s, that's when dial-up was around. ADSL in Australia started coming late 90s. So that was when dial-up was around. Now, the speed of that, 33.6 kilobits per second was the standard modem speed by around those sort of mid-90s. And then you got those modems that were very flash that jumped from 33.6 to 56. And I remember being at a conference one day talking to a gentleman about 56, and he said, that's it. For copper, that's as fast as it will ever get. That's the limit of copper. I went, oh, gee, the limit of copper, that's a big statement. No, that's it. The 56K modem, we've done some really cool things on this modem, and that's it as far as copper's concerned. Now, we all know we've gone a little bit faster than that with copper now. But we, here in Australia, had ISDN, which had 64 kilobits per second, and then 128 kilobits per second. Then we got ADSL, which was pretty exciting when we got to 256 kilobits per second, still on copper, mind you. Mm-hmm. We had cable internet, hybrid fibre coaxial, and then we got the NBN, which had fibre to the node and, of course, fibre to the premises. And so what I get excited about now, when you look at all that, in the middle of September in Australia, NBN's announced some of their new plans, and we will have a fibre to the premises plan that is 2,000 megabits per second download and 200 megs upload. So compare that 33.6 kilobits per second to now we'll have 2,000 megabits per second.
So you can download the human genome in your comfort of your own lounge room.
That's right, you could. So it is quite incredible how far we've come across that time. But AOL certainly had some significance in the whole landscape. I mean, when they had various services there, it's about 23 million they had at one stage there with dial-up, but they were a big player in terms of getting on the internet. We had companies like Aussie Mail and On Australia, which then turned into Big Pond with Telstra. So we had some of those companies in the early days. And one of the big issues that we had, from my perspective, living in regional New South Wales, was the exchanges for all of those initial dial-ups were in Sydney or Melbourne or maybe even Brisbane. So every time you made a phone call, it was an STD phone call, a trunk call. And so in today's money, I did
trunk call,
that's right. I did the calculation. We would pay back in those days about 70 cents in today's dollars, 70 cents per minute just for the phone call. Forget the ISP charge, 70 cents per minute to make that phone call.
It was an expensive game back in the old days, wasn't it?
So when we were setting up computer networks for clients, we would say, so how important is email to you, given the fact that email was very early and we didn't have a bunch of scams coming in? Yeah. And so some of the really flash companies we used to set up, we'd set them to dial in for their email twice a day. 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. were typically the times. So at 10 a.m. the server would automatically dial up, send any emails they had sitting in their outbox, collect any emails, and disconnect because you didn't want to be connected for too long. Yeah. And then those really big companies, then they'd do it again at 3 p.m. So you could get your email twice a day.
See, I'm okay with that because now these days, people say, did you get my email? I sent it like 2 minutes ago.
That's right.
It's like, no, I didn't get it yet because I didn't check my emails yet.
So imagine if someone sent an email back in those days at 3:05 p.m. Do you get my email? I'll ring you 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I would be happy if emails only came in on Wednesday.
The first Wednesday of each month, maybe. So I was thinking about that compared to sending a letter. And if you're only getting your email twice a day, it probably wasn't much faster than sending a letter. You could probably send a letter and be there overnight. And this one, you'd send an email and it'd be there maybe the same day, maybe the next day. So things have changed ever so slightly. Yeah. And I was at a conference one day and gave a talk, and someone put their hand up and said, what's the biggest change you've seen in technology? And there's so many changes I've seen in my time. But I actually think the biggest change that I've seen, if I sit back and think about it, is ubiquity of connection. Just the fact that we have the expectation that we're connected all the time, everywhere, wherever we might be, we're connected. It's just expected, and it's almost a bit foreign. What? I'm not connected at the moment.
Do you remember, I survive? Like one of the office ladies at school ever asking you if Mum had the phone on? Does your mum have the phone on? I can call home. Yeah, she's got the phone on. Yeah, you can ring her.
We're pretty flash. We've got a phone
and
connected.
You'd pick up and you'd have to talk to the operator. But no, anyway, this whole connection, this ubiquity of connection, we are expected. You are expected to be able to be contacted at any time.
That's right.
Of the day or night, wherever you are in the earth.
So anyway, AOL cutting it off. Yeah. I don't know if there's many other providers across the world that have still got dial-up.
Still doing dial-up.
Yeah, but AOL, I'm a bit surprised they were still doing it.
EV tech is no longer prohibitively expensive. Competition from newcomers to the market like BYD have ensured that. But if we're talking about pickup trucks, or Utes as they're known here in Oz, this market space is still in its infancy. We've heard of Ford's F-150, and Elon, of course, released his polarising Cybertruck back there in 2024, I think it was, maybe late 2023 even. And then there's BYD's Shark 6, but many would argue that $60,000, as the cheaper version, is still a bit steep for the job. Well, Matt, Ford is about to blow them all out of the water, aren't they?
They're making a big bet. The CEO of Ford, Jim Farley, has said, this is our Model T moment. He says this is the most radical change at Ford since the original Model T.
Right.
It's a pretty big claim to make.
Yes, that is, yes.
The Model T, of course, revolutionised manufacturing by having things done in a much more streamlined way. So that was a huge change, and that's back, 1908 or thereabouts that came out.
And the car, effectively, from that point, the car was known as the Model T. You had a car, it was a Model T more than one.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, of course, the original Henry Ford used to say that we've got lots of choices. For example, colour. You can have any colour you like as long as you like black. But that was part of that whole process to make that manufacturing simple and quick and easy.
Right.
So they are saying, or the current CEO is saying, this is the biggest change, which is a big claim to make. So what are they doing? Well, they're investing approximately $5 billion to transform 2 of their assembly plants over to focus on EVs. And the whole point of this is to get EVs, the pickup truck, as you correctly said, in the US is what they call it, the pickup or the truck, is going to be their big bet because they know there's a huge market. There's a huge market in the US. Everyone's got to have a pickup truck. Yeah. But at the moment, if you want to buy one in an electric version, they're expensive. There's not many available. There's not a lot of choice there. So Ford want to do a pickup truck, a mid-sized 4-door electric pickup for $30,000 US. And that'll translate quite nicely to our prices here as well. But $30,000 in the US would be very attractive because some people still say, I'd buy one of those, except it's a bit dear. Yeah. Now, sometimes people say things that they don't really mean. Yeah. Sometimes it might be convenient to say that to justify why they haven't bought one yet.
I wonder how much one of those big Dodgers or a Ram is these days. Yeah.
That's right. Now, they're making a bet, a big bet, a $5 billion bet on the fact that when people say, if they're a bit cheaper, I'd buy one. Okay, we'll give you one a bit cheaper. Oh, actually, that wasn't the problem. Whoops.
I think, it's only going to work in their favour, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I'm assuming they've done a bit more market research than Billy at the barbecue said he'd buy one. But one of their problems at the moment is they've got this whole EV division at Ford at the moment, but they're losing money hand over fist. So they lost $1.33 billion in the second quarter of 2025. Wow. So you kind of go, you're the CEO, you're making a $5 billion bet, and we just lost over $1 billion on this same division. Are you sure you're going in the right direction? Now, I think they are. I think the companies that invest in electric now are going to be at the forefront as it takes over, and I guarantee it's going to take over. But it's still got to be hard sitting in front of your board of directors saying, sure, just give me $5 billion.
With the beads of sweat rolling down your cheek as you're delivering the news.
Now, what they're doing is they're doing it a little bit different to some of the Chinese brands. The Chinese brands, the BYDs that you mentioned, for example, are saying, we'll win this game on volume. We'll win the price game on volume because we know we can produce a lot of them in China and then we'll be able to apply that to the rest of the world. What Ford is saying is that we've got 2 disadvantages against our Chinese counterparts. We've got a volume problem. We can't produce the same volume. There's not the same demand. And we've also got a labour cost problem. So our labour costs us more in Kentucky and in Michigan, for example, then our labour is going to cost us more than it does in China. So what they've really focused on is innovating in their process. And I suppose that's where he's coming from the Model T moment. So, for example, they built this platform that they'll use for a number of cars. Many of the EV manufacturers are doing that. 20% fewer parts than a normal vehicle. 25% fewer fasteners. Hopefully that means it doesn't fall apart. But they've worked on...
You can just fold stuff together here.
That's what it might be.
Clever folding.
But they're even working on the wiring harness. So, for example, they've got their Mustang Mach-E, but they've managed to work out how they can reduce the wiring harness by 1.2 kilometres. That's reducing it by 1.2 kilometres. So obviously it's a big wiring harness in the first place. Yeah, wow. That saves 10 kilos of weight, but also reduces the complexity in the whole process. They're using lithium iron phosphate cells, and they're doubling as the structural floor elements. So that makes sense as well. So it's part of the actual car infrastructure. 0 to 100 Ks in about 4.5 seconds, because that's what you need when you're a tradie in your ute with your tools stacked up in the back.
You leave them all sitting on the road behind you as you accelerate from the lights.
Yeah, so 40% fewer workstations around the factory, 15% faster assembly time. Really, this is about saying, how can we use everything we've learned in our manufacturing over the last 100 years to make this process more efficient? So good on them. And competition in EVs is what we need because we want more of them. We want better models. We want a whole range of different models out there, and we want those prices down around that 30 grand.
For sure. So I've already talked about it a little bit already this episode. The arrival of EV technology has been something of a revolution. That is undeniable. But there's a significant section of the global community who have stepped away from EV technology, preferring to hold out until the next chapter comes in the form of hydrogen power instead. Well, there may be something of a hold-up on the hydrogen front now with some rule changes that have recently been brought forward in the US, Matt.
And I'm still in two minds about hydrogen. I think we've talked about it before. I still think EVs are the way to go for light vehicles. I still think there's a place for hydrogen in long-haul trucks going across Australia, for example.
Yeah.
When you've got ships, when you've got long-haul, when you need a lot of energy and quick refuelling, then I think there's a place for hydrogen. But
there's still an element of the community that says, I'm going to need to travel 1,000 kilometres and I want to just be able to do it all on one charge, one
That's
tank.
Right. And if I have to refuel, I want to do it in 3 seconds.
Yeah, but if you're not stopping every couple of hours for a break, then you've got to really question whether or not you're being safe. But anyway, that's another story for another time.
That's right. So back in the Joe Biden era, there were various incentives to drive some green hydrogen processes, some manufacturing of green hydrogen. And so they had some taxes, incentives, they had a whole range of things. Of course, we've now got someone different as president and, surprise, surprise, lots of policy changes. And one of the policy changes that's come in is basically you've got to start these projects, these green hydrogen projects, before the end of 2027. Now, I can't imagine they're a thing that you just do on the back of an envelope and then go and start manufacturing these things.
Wow.
There's a fair bit of planning involved. So a lot of the projects that were in the very early phases of planning have now said, no, we can't get there by the end of 2027, so there's no point continuing on, we'll just stop. So that's put a bit of a halt on some of that green hydrogen. And there are three different types of hydrogen, just before I keep going on that. There's three different types of hydrogen. There is grey hydrogen, which is basically hydrogen that's produced with fossil fuel. So you use gas or coal to get the electricity to be able to produce the hydrogen. Then there's blue hydrogen, which uses the same concept, but they'll do some carbon capture and storage at the end of that process to try and reduce the amount of CO2 that's produced from that. And then green hydrogen, of course, which makes sense, you're producing hydrogen from renewable power. So that's the one we want. But the cost at the moment, unfortunately, is still up around anywhere from, and this is US dollars, $4 to $11 per kilogram for green hydrogen compared to grey hydrogen, which is more around the cost of, say, $1 to $2 per kilogram. But again, we know how to do grey hydrogen. We've got all the processes in place and we've got the power there that might be a little bit cheaper. So you've got to throw some investment. You've got to put some effort into green hydrogen to get there. The unfortunate part is that maybe now that focus won't happen because these tax incentives are gone. I know even with Australian companies, Woodside Energy and Fortescue, they had some major US hydrogen projects that were in the early planning. They just said, no, just stop now, forget about it. There's no point going ahead. That's just two companies I know of, but certainly other ones as well. So it's something that, and maybe this swings it back more towards electric vehicles. Maybe that kind of moves the needle back slightly. But if the US isn't doing it, maybe some country somewhere says, you know what, it's worthwhile investing in this because there'll be a worldwide market and maybe we can be the creator, we can be the producer of all this green hydrogen for the world. So maybe there's a roadblock in some area, maybe that opens up some opportunities elsewhere.
That's some glass half full thinking there, and we're going to need that sort of glass half full thinking when there's roadblocks being put in the way.
We'll just wait for 4 years maybe till we get a new president.
Now, while solar cells celebrated an explosion in the market 2 decades ago, feeding electricity back into the grid has gradually become less and less profitable. So consumers started looking more and more seriously at house batteries. Now, anyone who's been holding out for house battery technology to become more affordable need wait no longer. Tesla's Powerwall is no longer the dominant force in the domestic scene either. So things are changing. Matt, what are the dynamics of the home battery scene?
Do it now. It's happening. It's happening now. This is the opportunity. It's certainly been a very successful program, in my opinion, to get to the stage we're at now, where about a third of Australian households have rooftop solar.
Which is really significant.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So we've done a really good job there, but as some of the experts in inverted commas tell me, that the sun doesn't always shine.
What?
So we've got apparently, and the sun does always shine.
Have any electrical engineers thought about this?
That's right. So the sun's always shining, but not on my spot on Earth all the time.
Yeah.
So we have more solar production in the middle of the day than we do in the middle of the night in Australia. So that makes sense. So what do you do about that? Well, in the past, it didn't matter that much because we still needed more electricity in the grid, but we're getting to the stage now where we might have at certain times of the day enough or even too much. Sometimes you'll drive past a wind farm and you'll see a couple of the turbines not spinning. And I don't know every time, but I reckon most of the time you see that, they've actually put the brakes on that one and said, we don't need the power at this particular moment in time. Don't keep spinning and trying to supply power to the grid. We don't need it anymore. In fact, sometimes electricity providers get charged for putting power into the grid. So you're not going to do that. You're just going to stop it spinning to stop that. So with all that excess power, you've got a few options. You can just go, well, I'm producing too much power, whatever. I'm not getting paid the same as I used to, whatever. Or batteries. Now, batteries in the past were still expensive, and I still think it was better to have your pricing, your amount you got paid and the amount you paid for electricity, getting the right plans, you're still probably in front. But now I think we're at the point where if you've ummed and ahed about it for a while, then do it, then absolutely do it. And if I look at me personally, I've actually been holding off until you get three-phase. So my house has got three-phase electricity, and all the battery providers have been single-phase. And to set up single-phase batteries on a three-phase system was just more complicated than it needed to be.
Yeah, okay.
But now, finally, there are some companies who have got three-phase. So that's exactly what I'm doing at the moment, is going through and choosing which one of those to add on to our household, because we've got 10 kilowatts of solar, so why not take advantage of that?
Well, we actually dipped into our coffers and splurged and put batteries onto our house. The change in the electricity bill, and we've seen these go up. These electricity, we're being charged more per kilowatt hour these days, and I've been noting that as well. The difference is significant now we've got batteries on.
Yeah. So it's quite incredible. So it's a bit of a boom happening. There is a cheaper home batteries program which started on the 1st of July in Australia. So you do get some rebates for them as well, but the price has come down significantly. That's a big thing. Yeah, the price of solar has come down, the price of batteries has come down.
And we knew that it would.
Yeah, absolutely right. And so now when I put 10 kilowatts of solar panels on initially, I did do an ROI calculation to see how long it would take me to get my money back, but we were getting paid 66 cents per kilowatt hour back in those days, in the glory days. So the payback period was only a couple of years from my perspective.
Yeah.
And now the price of, and keep in mind, I paid about $54,000 for 10 kilowatts of solar panels.
Wow.
Prices come down significantly now, so you're not getting the same payment, but because it's so much cheaper, when you do the calculations, to put solar and battery on, you're probably getting a 3-year time frame to pay that back at most. And that's assuming electricity prices stay the same. So to give you an idea of how much it's changed, where in this country, the amount of batteries that were installed across 2024 was about 72,000. The estimation for the number of batteries that will be installed in 2025, based on activity already, is about 220,000. So obviously people have gone, yep, time to make it happen. Federal rebate helps that a bit as well. The pricing helps that a bit as well. Electricity prices going up certainly helps that as well. If I'm a battery manufacturer, I want to see those electricity prices skyrocket, so everyone comes to me and wants to buy those. Yeah. But we're getting more and more batteries installed, and it's actually quite clever from a government when you think about, say, all the solar panels we've installed. You can go and build a great big solar farm in one spot, or you can build lots of tiny solar farms across a whole bunch of different spots.
It's the Google model. Why would you have a big mainframe when you can just have a whole lot of little tiny desktop computers with their hard drives all doing the same job?
That's right. So
and
it makes sense.
If one busts, then you can just replace it easily. But this is different. I don't think we have that sort of level of damage with the solar cells.
No, we don't. Yeah. But we're spreading that out makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, spreading it out makes sense.
Now, the second part, and I haven't investigated this very far, I've only had a couple of conversations with people, and I don't know if you've looked at this either, but once you get battery capacity, in particular if you get some spare battery capacity, you can start to trade the market.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Exactly,
yeah.
Perfect. So there are apps out there that allow you to control this, because you can then start to sell when the pricing's most attractive. So you've got some excess electricity. Oh, I've generated more than I need. Yeah. Oh, look at that, the price of the market. Now, I've seen people who've manually gone and done that, but of course there are apps to do that now.
Sure.
So you can let an algorithm say when it's above this price, start selling it back to the market, so you become an electricity provider.
That's right.
It's fantastic. And the other part I like about all of this is that I've got a bunch of UPSs around my house for various electronics there. And I hate to count them, but it'd be easy to be 10 around the house for different things that I want to make sure they're both protected and running in a case of a blackout. You've got a battery on your house, you've effectively got a big mother battery backup unit for your house.
Exactly, yeah.
So you get a blackout, you get an interruption to power, and you go, I can keep watching the TV, I can keep doing whatever I'm doing, it's all okay.
Well, I was talking to my brother in Sydney, and they had a blackout, and he said they didn't even realise.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
But look, there's an element, and there'll be listeners out there who are still worried about house fires and these things catching on fire. Now, from what I gather, I think, if you do your research and make sure if you're going to buy a battery, lithium iron phosphate is a safe form of the storage of power, so they don't catch fire.
And
I understand.
I think the big manufacturers that are well credentialed, do their research properly, are incredibly unlikely to catch fire. I think what happens is you get some cheap scooter that someone paid $50 for, and it catches fire, and they go, "Look at that!"
Wrong charger with it,
that's right. And then they say, "Look at that! All of these devices running on batteries, they're all going to catch fire." I think if you buy a good quality one, and you would logically put it somewhere where it's less likely to cause damage, so you can put them outside your house. You don't have to have them inside. So if you're really worried about that, just have it a couple of metres away from your house, and if it catches fire, it burns the grass and maybe a nice little picnic area, but doesn't burn your whole house down.
Yeah, but no, the lithium iron phosphate is a new form of the lithium battery, and it's much, 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 much safer.
How many muches was that?
Well, yeah, I could throw another one in there. Much safer.
So the other interesting thing is that the Tesla Powerwall was a bit popular in the early days.
Yeah, very popular.
And I remember when I bought a Tesla, at one stage I said, "Can I get a deal on a Powerwall and a Tesla, doing them together, some sort of bundle deal?" And they went, "No, they're both so popular, we don't need to do a deal." They might change their mind now because Tesla has dropped from number 1 in the market in Australia down to number 6. And a couple of reasons for that. One, there is no doubt about the brand destruction that has been caused by Musk being associated with Trump has hurt their car brand and it's hurt their battery brand. So
absolutely,
that's without a doubt. Having said that, we've got some other players now. SIG Energy, Sungrow, Alpha ESS are all very strong in the market here in Australia. And again, three-phase. So some of those provide three-phase batteries as well. So there's some good competition now. Tesla had it on their own for a little while, but some good competition. And they don't associate with Trump, as far as I know, those three brands that I just mentioned then. So that might be safer for those three. So again, stackable is a big part of it.
Yep.
I've talked to people that have bought one and they've gone, "This is all working okay. I'll stack on another one." So if I was looking for a battery, look for the rebates, look for how much capacity you need to be able to sell a bit back, and then look for stackable as your needs might increase over time. You can then start to stack those batteries on. So it's a pretty exciting time.
It is exciting time. Yeah, get into it, folks. Surely the most loathsome and mundane task for any police officer has got to be in the pages upon pages of paperwork. The hours upon hours of filing reports and witness statements has got to be at the cost of feet on the beat, surely. So if AI had the power to do some real good, Matt, what do you reckon?
Yeah, why not? Let them get involved in some police investigations, because we want police on the street. We don't want police doing paperwork. We don't want police doing some mundane tasks. We want them out there on the street. We feel safer if we're law-abiding citizens. We feel safer with police out there.
When you see them out there,
that's right.
Visual presence is an important thing.
If you're not a law-abiding citizen, you don't like that, and that's okay. I'm quite comfortable with you not liking the fact that
uncomfortable.
That's right. So Jersey, which is a little island or a little channel island near the UK there, has, and size-wise, I've got a new SI unit here for you. So Jersey's about 119 square kilometres, which is about the same as Canberra.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so if you want to get an idea of that.
So it's a single Canberra.
A single Canberra, that's right.
Okay.
A single unit there. So a built-up area of Canberra is the same as Jersey, the island. So it's about 14 kilometres by 8 kilometres. So fairly small, a bit isolated, but crime is a real problem. So the Jersey police spent £1.8 million investigating youth-related crime in 2024. That's just on one segment of crime. And that seems like a lot of crime for a population of about 100,000 and an area about the size of Canberra. So they're using AI to do a few things. First of all, they're using AI to transcribe witness interviews. It's a lot easier for people to read through those, search for keywords when you've got it all transcribed. In the past, you had humans transcribing those interviews, not always police officers, but people involved in the police force. So the first thing they've done is that. Then they're starting to use AI to boost efficiency by then comparing some of these witness interviews, some of these AI transcribed interviews, looking for anomalies. James said that Mary left at 10 o'clock. Mary said that she left James's place at 9 o'clock. Oh, that looks like an anomaly. Let's look at that a bit further. Now, you see police shows and you see sometimes there'll be the moment, whether they're based on real life stories or fictional stories, it'll be, aha, we've picked a little discrepancy here. We've picked a little lie. Does that
helps when you've got a script writer?
It does. It does.
Yeah, in the natural world, I think how many of those little things have slipped through? You know.
Well, I saw one the other day where the guy's alibi was that he went jogging with another gentleman each night. They did a 10-mile jog, which seems like a fairly decent sort of jog. A 10-mile jog. So his alibi for not committing this particular murder, and this is a real life story. This wasn't just a fictional story. Was he went jogging with Jimmy. Surprise, surprise, the police went and interviewed this person. Oh, did this person go jogging with you? Yeah, we do it every night. But the other night was a bit funny. He had a stomach bug, so he only jogged for a mile and then went home. Yeah. Gee, the alibi you just gave us just revealed the fact that you weren't where you said you were. So straight away you had opportunity at the time and you also lied a little bit. So anyway, they kept going further and found out he did the crime. So picking up some of those things, I reckon AI would be very clever at that because it would just be looking through raw data.
Yeah.
And when I talk to
treating
someone...
all the data as the same. And
that's right.
Yeah.
When I talk to someone and they tell me something, I kind of tend to believe them. I think this person in general...
Bias is something very difficult to let go of completely.
It is.
Yeah, we try to be unbiased in a lot of things we do, and people say, yeah, I'm trying to be impartial. But there's just this inherent tendency that humans have to lean one way or the other just slightly. Yeah,
yeah, that's right. So I think that's a good process. So essentially they're using AI in as many ways as they can, investigating, transcribing, even looking at some of the information, and they hope that all of this will just help reduce their investigative backlogs. And you can imagine we've got all these interviews on tape. Let's just go and let AI transcribe those and then go and search those and look for things. So opening up old cold cases, one little thing that someone missed, or maybe there was a different interviewer that interviewed these three witnesses compared to someone who interviewed this other one because something else happened, and they don't hear the same story, but AI just takes all that and looks at it all. So I think we're going to see AI much more in policing, and I think the important thing, the crucial thing here is a bit of human oversight at the end. We don't want to see AI going, yes, the butler did it, and then no one actually checks to see whether the butler did it. So,
if there was even a butler.
Maybe there wasn't. So I think the idea is really just to see how we can take some of that resource-heavy workload away from humans and give that to AI. We don't want to replace police. Absolutely no chance of that at all. We want to see them, but we want to see them out on the street rather than sitting behind a computer somewhere.
This is really clever, and I think, I applaud it. Bring it on. So let's take a moment to pay our respects to the humble knee joint. We all take for granted the role of our knees, but they bear all our weight, don't forget, even when we're off balance, and they have to do their work sometimes all bent out of shape. And they do this for about 80 years or so if we allow them to. An amazing joint. And when it goes bung, we need some sturdy technology to restore it back to a workable state. Matt, what tech news do we have for sufferers of chronic knee pain today?
Well, you'd think we'd be talking about modern new knee replacements or knee replacements that make us like the $6 million man to make us run faster and stronger.
I think the fact that we can reconstruct knees is amazing.
It's incredible, isn't it?
If you actually talk to someone who does these things, an arthroscopic surgeon, I think they're called, it is an amazing sort of a feat to reconstruct a knee.
But people who have had knee reconstructions, I'm fascinated by how quickly they're out, up and about, they're walking and pain-free. Suddenly they go, wow, I've got some pain from surgery, but the knee, it feels fantastic. So love all that. But the last resort, as I've talked to many doctors about, the last resort is the knife. If you can work out some ways to solve problems before you hit the knife, that's got to be better. So sorry to all those surgeons out there, but other doctors have said, no, you don't want to go to the knife if you can avoid it. So knee osteoarthritis is a big issue. 5 million people in the UK are affected by this right now as we speak. And there's been a little solution that actually helps before you need to go to the surgeon, and also before you need to go to pain medication. So for a lot of these people, they're not at the level where they need to go to be put under the knife. Again, if you can avoid that, that's great. And so what they've done in the past is they've said, take these drugs, and people have taken the drugs. They can't feel their knee. Everything's fine. But you don't really want to be on a steady daily diet of drugs to attack some knee pain, for example. So they've
you don't have to,
Not if you don't have to, that's right. So they've got this little smart sleeve, 1 hour per session, 5 days, maybe 7 days a week, but 5 days a week seems to do the job. And all it does is does some electrical nerve stimulations with certain electrodes that are printed on the inside of the sleeve around the knee. And what those do is that stimulates the nerves to the point where they're effectively blocking the pain. So it doesn't fix the problem. The problem still exists in the knee. The knee's still got some issues there, but as long as it's not affecting our day-to-day life, in other words, we can still use it mechanically.
Yeah, okay.
And we don't feel the pain, happy days. So keep using it and away you go. So they're at the moment, as we speak, in a 12-week clinical trial. They've got 80 participants from 45 to 75 years of age, and doing this, the early results are fantastic. What they're really trying to fine-tune this whole process is how long do you need to leave it on each day? And if someone said to me, you can take one pill which takes 5 seconds to swallow, or 1 hour sitting still with this knee sleeve, you might go, just give me the drug because I haven't got time to sit around for an hour. But how long do you need? Can you use it while you're walking around still? Does it block it then and then effectively blocks it for the rest of the day?
Well, and to what degree can you use it? Can you use it while you're playing sport?
Yeah, exactly right. So all of those things are being worked out in the trial. But I think it's something that we probably haven't explored enough. We've kind of got the hang of taking drugs to block pain. We have a headache, we take various headache pills, and we've kind of got a basic understanding of that. But using nerve stimulation to block pain, I don't think we've really explored that anywhere near the level that we could. So this is the first step for many in working out a way that we might be able to prevent some knee surgeries and prevent the use of drugs. To give you an idea of how much it's worth, and this might be bad for the drug producers, but knee osteoarthritis medication in the UK alone generates about £200 million for the drug companies. So it's a big business.
Yeah,
so they may not be
business,
happy about this particular concept, or maybe they need to get in to start selling these knee sleeves as well. But they do like the idea they're selling these drugs continually, I'm sure.
Well, we already see, you only have to go for a walk through a shopping centre and you'll see a bunch of people who've got various things on their wearing on their knees to give them a bit extra support.
Yep.
It's a common thing.
Yeah.
Well, if that thing is then doing some, giving some electrical impulses that are bringing some pain relief as well.
Yep. Yeah, it sounds fascinating.
It's time for a little mind reading here at Tech Talk. See, reading not ECGs, that's for your heart, but EEGs, they're for your brain. Reading EEGs is a tricky game. It takes quite a chunk of a neurologist's day to decode the graphs of the tiny little flickers and zaps that go on inside a patient's brain. But that is all set to be flipped on its head now that AI is involved, Matt.
It's the same story we've heard a number of times. Give AI a bunch of data, analyse that, look for things that are different, or here are things that will show you that are different. Now look for those in the next set of data. They've trained this particular system on 1 million hours of EEG monitoring data.
That's a reasonable training program.
It is, isn't it?
And a lot of neurologists haven't done that long training.
That's what I was about to say. Think about a doctor who's an expert in their field who looks at EEG data
It's been
and says,
decade.
That's right. He or she's not going to have 1 million hours of data, and we're not that good at remembering stuff. So even though we might have looked at 1 million hours, which I don't know how you would, but if you looked at 1 million hours of data, I just don't know you're going to say, aha, look at that one there. That looks like the one I saw at 588,000 hours. That's just not going to have that same recall, whereas AI is doing that. So essentially they're doing all of the training. Then they say, here, look at some other EEG data from a patient that you haven't seen before and tell us what you think. So, for example, it can be used for epilepsy. Does someone have something in their brain that indicates epilepsy, or they've just had some sort of epileptic fit? Is there something there we can see? Sleep monitoring. What's your brain doing during sleep? Are you getting effective sleep? We know, we've talked about it before with our smartwatches trying to track our sleep, but that's using some pretty basic tools. Nothing like having some brain monitoring to do that. And I started thinking, it wasn't in the story that I read and the research I did for this, but I started thinking about now with so many sporting codes doing HIAs, head injury assessment. So you get hit. I saw it happen in cricket recently where someone got hit on the grill and they had to be taken off 11 days. I think there was a protocol they couldn't play for. Yeah. And that's just let's come up with a time frame. 11 days seems like reasonable on the research we have. But imagine having the ability to just do some quick brain monitoring. Let's have a look at their. Oh, look at that. No, you shouldn't play. Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't play for a day. Maybe you shouldn't play for a month based on the brain monitoring. Yeah. In football as well, I mean, I don't know how quick you could do it. I don't know whether you could run on, put a little helmet on someone, quick EEG. Yeah. Oh, no, you're right, keep playing. Or, no, get off the field because, no, your brain is in some sort of trauma state. But just being able to read our brain better. I don't think we understand. No, we don't understand memory that well. We don't understand the brain that well. It's a bit complicated and confusing.
Things like CTE we're still learning about a lot and still got a lot of questions about CTE. So that's why people are being so careful now in sports.
That's right. So that might be absolutely spot on. People that we know have got CTE. So in Australia, Wally Lewis is a big proponent of saying we need to protect our brain a bit better. Someone like that has said, I've got CTE or is being diagnosed with that. Let's look at the brain, the EEG data from that brain compared to someone of a similar age that hasn't been playing a sport that has your head bouncing off other people at high speeds and see how that looks and then start to compare that. And then in sports people at a younger age, you could start to look for those signs because you've got so much data there and say, actually, you're 25, you're still in the peak physical condition. Find a sport that doesn't involve you having your head contact other people. Yeah, darts. It seems much safer, that's right. Not a lot of head injuries in darts. Maybe a bit of overweight and alcoholism, but not too many head injuries in darts. But it is one of those things, I think, that we will find incredible ways to use the power of AI. And when I think about the power of AI, I really do think about that absorption of so much data to be able to analyse that going forward. Let us be the creative ones, let us come up with the different left field ideas. Let something like AI that's really good at analysing bulks of data.
Do the legwork.
That's right. Do the legwork. No one wants to do that. Go and look at all those scans and tell me what you find different about those.
Now, full disclosure here, this next story is probably something that not many people think about very much at all, but with increased investment in space travel, deep-sea research and even hydrogen-powered vehicles, for example, there's an increased need to bring down costs and up the safety measures for the use of high-pressure vessels. So, Matt, 3D printing high-pressure titanium gas tanks may be one of those tech advances whose significance is barely even acknowledged in the future.
And I think the significance isn't acknowledged, but it's really just a demonstration of how far we've come with 3D printing. To give you an idea, so this is a 3D printed titanium tank. It's about 640 millimetres in diameter, holds 130 litres of whatever you want to put in there, whatever volume of surface or substance you want to put in there. It can handle a pressure about 330 times normal atmospheric pressure, and it can handle that at negative 196 degrees Celsius. So it can handle from some conditions it might encounter, maybe in space, for example. So fantastic. But to develop this, and if you needed for your spacecraft to produce a device about this size, typically you would have a lead time for that. Someone walks in and says, I need one of these. Sure, come back and see me in a year, because you'd need to develop the whole process of that, do some testing. You'd need to forge that. You'd need to work out that whole process and say, there it is. With 3D printing, sure, give me a couple of weeks and I can produce that. And one of the problems used to be when you did 3D printing, you used to get some little air pockets. It wasn't able to handle pressure. You could build a physical structure, but you just didn't have the structural integrity that you had when you did it via other methods. So they developed further, and this is mainly out of South Korea, but a range of different companies have been working on this, but they've developed this concept using directed energy deposition. So you basically start with your alloy, a titanium alloy, and then you melt it with a laser and then basically use this DED process to build up whatever you're building up. 3D printing is really just building something layer by layer, whether it be some plastic that you use to build a Lego brick or you use some titanium to build some volumetric process. The whole process is about layer by layer, but that's where you used to get those air pockets. So it's getting better all the time. Now, great, we can now build a high-pressure device that can handle low temperatures and high pressure. Fantastic. But it means we can build lots of things on aircraft, for example. most aircraft, you've got enough volume that you can go through a process where you can produce volume of a particular item. So when Boeing or Airbus produces their planes, they're producing them 30, 50, 100, 200 at a time. But there's still parts that you might need one or two of those. Or you might have an idea for something that could make something work a bit better. You don't want to go through that whole manufacturing process and wait a year. Well, can we just do a 3D printed one and then test it out to see if it works? Does it improve the process? Absolutely. So, yes, this is really focused around space flight hardware, but I think when you have anything that needs high stress, high reliability, needs to be able to contain something in a pressure situation, then 3D printing is now a valid solution.
Yeah, I'm wondering about a lot of these manufacturing plants and just how many 3D printers they're going to have just operating simultaneously, all just churning out these various parts now, because this seems to be the new way of doing things.
And there's got to be a cutoff. If I'm a manufacturer and I need to produce X of something, I say I'm better off 3D printing it. X plus 1, I'm better off going through a more traditional, whether it be forging, whether it be smelter, whatever it might be. There is a cutoff, but I guarantee that X, that magical cutoff number, is slowly increasing its number, because in the past, if I was doing 5 of something, it might have been quicker to just do traditional manufacturing, but now it might be 50 of something, and then I'm better off. So 3D printing is getting better all the time. And the other one that I've seen, I've actually been in Japan and watched this process in place that was an aircraft manufacturer or manufactured components for an aircraft company, and they did a process where they would just take in a billet, so it might be a rectangular or a circular billet of metal, and then it would basically just cut away what wasn't needed to end up with what was needed at the end. So that sort of process as well, again, which is not the best way to do it for hundreds, but for 1 or 2, it was a very efficient way. And that was before 3D printing, but again, it was a way to produce something very quickly without going through and just making, even if you're pouring liquid metal into a mold, you need to make the mold. Yeah. And that's a process in itself. So there are all these processes that you have where 3D printing is just going to be so much faster and more efficient as the volume is low. But again, that number's getting higher.
Jeez, the future's an exciting place, man.
It is, absolutely.
And that's all we have for you today. This race has been run and won. The last one of the podium is a rotten egg. Thanks for another cracking tech talk, Matt.
I'm just going to go and just see if I can hear for one last time, "You've got mail," or the sound of a modem from AOL.
Nostalgic, I'm just going to go, searching on the internet for the nostalgic sound of the old download. Dial-up modem.
Just sort of play the modem sound of my kids and say, "Can you guess what this is? It's a guessing game. Tell me what this noise is."
They'd be worried that it's going to mean the death of something.
Maybe.
Well, thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Tech Talk with Matthew Dickerson. We're very proud of this little podcast, and we're glad you join us week after week for that. My name's James Eddy, and I've been your host today. We look forward to seeing you in another week's time. We hope you can join us too, and maybe bring some friends along while you're at it. Hey, and if you haven't done so yet, press that like button, or maybe that subscribe button through your provider, and join us on a regular basis, week after week after week after week. We're here for you all the time. Look forward to seeing you in another week's time.